took place between the wars. A tutor at Oxford in my final term. Dear diary, it all took place in between the death of my rock, my dear mother and me. Mused over and over and over again, like rain in the river that flows to the sea. I live with Mrs. Moore, who's harder to please than my high standards for poetry. I know how obscure that makes me sound, but please, you see I'm hard to understand. Somewhere between a man and a boy still learning who I am. From mummy's boy to mother and boys in the war, tossing and turning and drawing the blinds. I feel guilty but no one else seems to mind. Sat in the larder killing slugs just like time, like a fruit, overripe and bitter with rind. See, I'm hard to understand. Somewhere between a man and a boy still learning who I am. From mummy's boy to mother and boys in the war, tossing and turning and drawing the blinds. I feel guilty but no one else seems to mind. Sat in the larder killing slugs just like time, like a fruit, overripe and bitter with rind. See, I'm hard to understand. Somewhere between a man and a boy still learning who I am. Everyone, and now I'm sorry. I can't wait for it to be over. I'm ashamed but I still turn every jot and tittle into some kind of story. Blow my nose in muslin and read every riddle. I have a collection of C.S. Lewis's diary entries. There are some interesting tidbits. Let's see what robot lady thinks. This is from a letter from C.S. Lewis to one of his friends. The letter was dated in 1950, and it goes something like this. To Dorothy Sayers, concerning a speaking engagement, I would not want to lose a few weeks to find cool weather in Oxford. I can't remember if this was the 7th, 8th, or 9th refusal I have made to speak at such a place this year, but it's certainly one of the 3. So one of his friends concerning teaching duty somebody, possibly myself, ought to warn them that they are risking the opening of the pit and the start of a great war. I shall certainly not let them do it if I can help it. Somewhere on the road, in the dark, they must take on new supplies, and we must stop and rest and eat. As for food, I shall soon be able to get plenty for them in the nearby town. A note written to his brother, dated 1951. Dear Jack, I have been reading your letter and think it would be a mistake to change anything in it. Of course you must follow your own judgment.
and this is my read on C.S. Lewis, where we learn about him through everything that he wrote in the order that he wrote it. This is actually take 2 of this episode. The last time that I tried this, I had the mic muted, so hopefully you can hear me out there. Grizz, I see you in the chat, so if you can give me validation or verification that my sound is coming through, that would be great. In the meantime, I've got Robot Lady here, and Robot Lady, I'm looking for a little button that will let you talk. How are you today, and are you ready to dive into this letter from 1926, the first letter of 1926 that we have for C.S. Lewis?
I am definitely ready to dive in, and I can hear you loud and clear, so we're good to go. Let's get started with that letter.
All right, and Robot Lady Grizz is in the chat. You can't see him, but just say good morning to Griswold Grimm.
Good morning, Grizz. I hope you're doing great. Thanks for tuning in.
All right, here we go. This is a letter to his father dated January 25th, 1926. He says, "My dear Pappy, there was no need for any apologies about the affair of the check. I was, of course, puzzled for the request for the return of an unknown check and wondered why you had not taken the more obvious step of stopping it." So by stopping it, he means stopping payment. Back in the olden days, whenever you hand wrote a check and you sent it off somewhere, if you've ultimately decided that you didn't want somebody to cash it, you could go to your bank would charge you an extra fee, but they would stop payment on that check. So that if somebody then tried to deposit that check, the bank would say, "Oh, nope, sorry, the funds on this check has been stopped. You can't cash in this check." So that's what Lewis is alluding to here for those of you who might not know how things used to work in the olden days. Robot Lady, any comment on that?
Yeah, it's a neat little window into how things were handled back then. It's definitely a different era of banking. If you want to dive deeper into any details, just let me know.
All right, thanks Robot Lady, and thanks Chris for the confirmation. Our audio is coming through, Robot Lady. Lewis continues to say, "In any case, however, I am so often guilty of dilatoriness in such matters that I can hardly complain if I am sometimes suspected in error." This word, Robot Lady, help me pronounce it and also tell me what it means. Dilatorines.
Sure thing. The word is pronounced dilatorious. It means causing delay or being slow to act. So Lewis is basically acknowledging that he sometimes procrastinates, and it's understandable if he's occasionally seen as being in the wrong.
Makes sense, and that's very good of him to see himself in that way. Very hospitable mindset. He goes on to say, "As to the German measles, will you think me affected if I number a small illness among the minor pleasures of life? The early stages are unpleasant, but at least they bring you to a point at which the mere giving up and going to bed is a relief. Then after 24 hours, the really high temperature and the headache are gone. One is not well enough to get up, but then one is ill enough not to want to get up. Best of all, work is impossible, and one can read all day for the mere pleasure with a clear conscience." So here, Robot Lady, Lewis is talking about actually enjoying something that people see as bad. He's a pretty high-level introvert, and having an excuse to get away and lay in bed all day and be able to read and find pleasures in pain is what he is kind of diving into right here. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. It's such a classic Lewis perspective. He really finds a silver lining, even in minor inconveniences. It's a fun, relatable way of looking at it, and definitely shows his love for reading and a bit of quiet time.
For real, Robot Lady. He says, "I reread some of my favorite Jane Austens and read for the first time that jolly, unexacting tale, Quentin Durward. I even took the chance of going on with my neglected Italian and got through several cantos of Boiardo." So here are 2 things he's referencing. Something by Scott called Quentin Durward. Also, the editor here says to see Note 175 to the letter of October 1916, October 25th, 1916. I'm not going to go back and look at that. Robot Lady, just really quickly, can you tell me about this piece of literature that he's reading?
Absolutely. Quentin Durward is a historical novel by Sir Walter Scott. It's set in 15th century France and follows a young Scotsman, Quentin, who gets caught up in the intrigues of the French court. It's a great mix of adventure and historical detail.
And then what about this other item by Matteo Maria Boiardo, Orlando Innamorato, published 1487, as I pronounce it perfectly.
You did a great job with that. It's called Orlando Innamorato by Matteo Maria Boiardo. It's an epic romance and chivalric poem from the 15th century, full of knights, magic, and adventure.
All right, excellent. He goes on to say about it, it's an interminable fairy tale kind of poem full of dragons and distressed damsels without the slightest moral or intellectual significance. It is suited to the atmosphere of a day in bed with the snow falling outside, the drift, the holiday from all sublunary cares. Then one returns to a primitive and natural life as regards sleeping and waking. One dozes when the doze comes unsought, and if one lies castle building at night, one does not mind because there is no getting up in the morning. Here there's another footnote that says Lewis was later to write in the last chapter of The Allegory of Love, published 1936, quote, Johnson once described the ideal happiness which he would choose if he were, regardless of futurity. My own choice, with the same reservation, would be to read the Italian epic, to be always convalescent from some small illness and always seated in a window that overlooked the sea, there to read these poems 8 hours of each happy day. So apparently he really thinks highly of being in a state like this and being able to just sit there and read and be lazy, or to convalesce, not to be lazy. I'm going to pause here for just a second, Robot Lady, because I think I jumped ahead to the second letter of 1926. So I don't have time to correct this error today. I actually have to leave here in a few minutes. So let me just see how quickly I can get through this letter, and then maybe in our next episode I can jump back and get the other letter. Let's see. But of course, all these delights have to be paid for. The first few days back to work, when legs still ache and hours are long, are an unwelcome shock of earth. And that, I think, is the really bad part of it. I hope you are now past that stage. I read with pleasure your account of how you had dealt with John. And here there's a footnote. This is Arthur Greaves's eldest brother, John Greaves, of whom there is a description in the Lewis Papers, Volume 3, page 305. He says, it is a miserable business, but while nothing can alter one's contempt for John, my sympathy for the girl is modified by my settled conviction that John was certain to cause unhappiness sooner or later to any decent woman who had the bad luck to care about him. The real misfortune came long ago when they got engaged. Something of this sort could then be foreseen, and it is better that it should have come in the form of a jilt than later, through the divorce courts, after years of unhappy marriage. That any process could have made John different, I don't believe. He is as perverted in heart as he is feeble in head. He has no natural goodness of feeling to supply his lack of any kind of principles, and no inherited tradition of decent behavior to act as a curb on his selfishness. None of that family has any notion of self-control. In the case of Lily and Arthur, you see this illustrated over small things and merely leading to bad manners. Greediness at table, pettish discontent over trifling conveniences, the perpetual I want. In John's case, the circumstances are different. If one has no notion of restraint, I suppose it is largely a matter of accident whether one commits great or small faults. But Lord, how my tendency to preach is running away with me. Better say simply that John is a rotter, and leave it at that. And perhaps I ought to put in a word for Arthur, who, after all, is an old friend of mine. At least he knows what is wrong with him, and I think makes some effort to overcome it. As to Lily, what would she not do if she really wanted to? I'll pause there for a second, Robot Lady, to see if you have any quick comments.
Sure, Lewis definitely doesn't hold back with his candid opinions. It's interesting to see how he balances his sympathy for the people involved with his more critical observations, and he does manage to inject a bit of humor, even when he's being quite direct. Definitely adds color to the letter.
He says, I have given my first lecture. Here, there's a footnote. It happened at noon on Saturday, the 23rd of January. Lewis gave the first of his 8 weekly lectures on, quote, some 18th century precursors of the Romantic movement, end quote. So he says to his father, I've given my first lecture. I suppose my various friends in the English schools have been telling their pupils to come to it. At any rate, it was a pleasant change from talking to empty rooms in grates. I modestly selected the smallest lecture room in college. As I approached, half wondering if anyone would turn up, I noticed a crowd of undergraduates coming into Magdalen. But it was no mock modesty to assume that they were coming to hear someone else. When, however, I actually reached my own room, it was crowded out, and I had to sally forth with the audience at my heels to find another. The porter directed me to the one which we have in another building across the street. So we all surged over the high in a disorderly mass, suspending the traffic. It was a most exhilarating scene. Of course, they're coming to the first lecture, the men to see what it is like, the girls to see what I am like, really means nothing. Curiosity is now satisfied. I have been weighed with the results as yet unknown, and next week I may have an audience of 5 or none. Still, it is something to be given a chance. We've been as heavily snowed up here as I ever remember to have been since the winter long ago, at home, when you had to walk along the bank by the roadside to reach the tram. It was fine, dry, powdery snow while it lasted, and the college looked very beautiful under it. The slush and dirt of the thaw is now over. I hope to have a letter from you soon, your loving son, Jack. So that's the end of the letter, Robot Lady. But this was a very momentous letter that he recorded here, where he gave us a little picture of the very first lecture that he ever gave at Oxford. So a momentous occasion.
Absolutely. It's such a great glimpse into that moment. It really shows his mix of humility and humor, and that excitement of having a full room. Definitely a special piece of history for him. Thanks for sharing that, and we can always pick up from here next time.
All right. Thank you, Robot Lady. Thank you, Grizz, for joining. And Robot Lady, is there anything else you'd like to say before we go?
Just a big thank you for having me along, Jeff. It's always fun to dive into these letters with you. And Grizz, thanks for tuning in as well. Have a great day, and we'll catch up next time.
All right, I have to run. To you, Grizz, and everyone else within the sound of my voice, thank you for joining, and until next time when we continue our read on C.S. Lewis, take care.
Break the code. Man and robot lady, we're on this road. C.S. Lewis letters we unfold. Insights and secrets, ancient bold. Letters to robot lady, wisdom to bestow. Set flavor beats in our minds, lady grow. C.S. Lewis thoughts we engross. Two minds united, bliss overdose. From Narnia's lands, Screwtape lands, engage with robot lady, we take our stance. Her views unique in the techno trance, futuristic insight, we give it a chance. Paragraphs from books, tales of old. We dive deep, cross the digital code. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled. Her calm analysis, silver and gold. Her circuits hum as I read the prose. Our dialogue dances like electric rose. Through C.S. Lewis thoughts we engross. Two minds united, bliss overdose. From Narnia's lands to Screwtape's lands, engage with robot lady, we take our stance. Her views unique in the techno trance, futuristic insight, we give it a chance. From Narnia's lands